Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think my CV is on the screen, and those of you who might be straining their necks to look for some connection with World Bank, ADB, or IMF would be sorely disappointed because there is none. Uh, actually, my position here is something like Alice in Wonderland. When this conference started, I thought, having spent over 3 decades in the Navy, I would get to speak on security and defense. But they said you should speak on blue economy. Then when I turned up here, I found I'm speaking on development cooperation. Well, to compound the problems, the session was advanced today. And then, of course, I burned the midnight light oil like a good professor or a teacher, tried to work out some notes. And whatever I wanted to speak, my predecessor spoke. Well, nevertheless, I need to speak something because this time has been given, so I do that. Now, development cooperation, I think, is the topic, that's the subject, that's the matter for this particular session. And development cooperation in India's context is a very interesting phenomenon. Development cooperation has been used by India as a very, very powerful tool of diplomacy, projecting its soft power right from the time India gained independence. And this is very surprising because at that point of time, we were actually seeking aid from across the globe. We were getting large quantity of aid from across the globe. And, but despite that, right from 47, India in its own way has been contributing to development assistance. And in the initial years, this particular assistance or cooperation, as I would like to call it, was governed more by ideological and political reasons. And I think post-90s, when the liberalization started, people say that it's now governed by geoeconomics. But the fact is, even now, while geoeconomic factors come into play, the political factors still predominate as to where the aid must go. Please understand, 80% of our grant assistance goes to South Asia. It's not because of geoeconomics, it's still because of politics. In fact, a bulk of it goes to Nepal and Bhutan. Because we don't want somebody else entering there, we want to provide them aid. But as India's economy improved, our development cooperation also enhanced in last 15 years plus. This cooperation has enhanced more than 7 times. And when people look at statistics, very often we tend to ignore one very significant factor, that each dollar spent by India in development cooperation is far more effective than each dollar spent by, say, US or any other Western country. And one would say, how is that? To give you an example, to get an Afghan bureaucrat to India and train him for 2 to 3 weeks would cost approximately $1,000. But to take the same diplomat to United States and train him for 3 weeks would cost more than $10,000. So please, you have to see, as you say, the bang for the buck. India gets it far more. And that's one of the reasons when you go to Afghanistan, despite being the 5th largest donor, our aid shows. People, when you talk to Afghan government officials, they say India has given us what we wanted and it's done a wonderful job. So that is one thing which we need to understand. But since we have a large number of students here, I need to tell you the development cooperation in India again has a bureaucratic structure because India is governed by bureaucrats. So anything and everything has to have a bureaucratic structure. So we have MEA, the Ministry of External Affairs is the nodal agency. You have a Development Partnership Administration, and which has again 3 different divisions. The first division deals with lines of credit. Of course, it has certain grant assistance to certain countries, certain reconstruction projects. We are involved now. We are involved in a big way as far as reconstruction in Sri Lanka and Nepal is concerned. Sri Lanka, as you know, was ravaged by the civil war. The work is still going on. And it is the second division, which is the most important division to my mind as far as development partnership administration is concerned. And it deals with ITEC, Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program. See, because when India gets involved in infrastructural projects, our implementation has been rather tardy. Kaladan project is still languishing. Salma Dam, we created a record of sorts in completing it, the number of years that we took. Very often in New Delhi, a lot of people complain that why did Sri Lanka give Hambantota to Chinese and not to us? But I tell them that if probably we were executing it, we would not have completed it to date. The fact is, our infrastructural implementation capabilities have been woefully inadequate. And we need to get out of this bureaucratic lethargy, because anything in India is actually governed by the bureaucrats. But we have our strength somewhere else. And our strength is in training, in setting up institutions like this. And this is where our biggest strength is. And that's where I said ITEC is the most significant part of developmental cooperation. Last year, that is 2015-2016, India gave 8,300 civilian scholarships under ITEC, over 500 scholarships under Colombo Plan, and 2,058 slots in defense establishments. 47 institutions conduct almost 280 courses every year. This is where we have a strength. Anybody who goes trained from this, and yesterday we saw over dinner, the people who were trained by Dr. Majumdar, I think decades ago, came back talking so highly. Now, this is the soft power which we need to nurture. Unfortunately, bureaucracy stymies this also. As I said, we have 2,058 defense personnel coming for various slots in India. And most of them come from Asia, Africa, Latin America, these countries. Many of them have gone and risen to high positions. An ideal way would have been to follow through. The people who have come, trained here, you need to see how the Americans go about it. You go and do one course in United States, which the US government conducts. Every year you get an invitation for a network. So they want to keep you within their sphere of influence. On the other hand, and as I said, since I have been in the defense forces for over 3 decades, I must talk about defense. In defense forces, after having trained a student for 1 year, once he leaves the country, you're not even permitted to even communicate with him. You can't even send an email. So whatever you have invested, you actually frittered it away. I think we need to rethink about this particular issue. Certain statistics for the students, as I said, grant assistance. We are now a big, one of the influential countries as far as grant is concerned, but 80% of that grant goes to South Asia, our immediate neighborhood. As far as lines of credit are concerned, of course, Exim Bank CMD is better suited to say that, but as per the figures available with me, we gave $11.46 billion of lines of credit last year, as on 31st March 2016, and out of it, almost 58% went to Africa. So that is, I think, where we have done a good job. And I think under the third India-Africa summit, additional $10 billion of lines of credit have been actually assured. The government of India would be giving that sort of an additional thing. As far as our main development cooperation is concerned, ITEC, more than 50% of the slots are for Bhutan. Now, this is important, and 88% are for Asian countries. Just 3.5% for Africa today. To my mind, that's woefully inadequate. We have some from Latin America and other countries, but I think we need to have a look at this particular issue. For long, people believed that this development cooperation was to counter growing Chinese influence. Nepal, Bhutan, because China neighbored them, Sri Lanka, Maldives, to counter growing Chinese influence. But China has gone a huge notch ahead. China has come out with OBOR, One Belt, One Road. It's come out with Maritime Silk Road initiatives. Can we counter with the existing level of funding, existing level of implementation? I think if we have to counter Chinese influence, we need to enhance our development cooperation to a different level. And far more important, we need to improve our project implementation system. No longer can the projects be implemented under bureaucratic supervision. The belief in the government that only bureaucrats are the sole repository of virtue has to go. There are huge fertile minds available in private sector. I think we need to get into this, because as long as we don't get onto this project implementation system, which is time bound, we would not be able to counter Chinese influence. Then what do we do? Should we join them? That's one option. Chinese have been talking that please collaborate with us on Maritime Silk Route initiative, make it part of Project MOSOM, come to OBOR. We've been saying that this OBOR, CPEC, China-Pakistan economic corridor is economically unviable. I believe it, but Pakistanis are not believing it. The fact is that the Chinese are providing funds at an extremely high rate of interest as far as international situation is concerned. But Chinese do need an access or an exit to Arabian Sea for accessing their raw material, ensuring the safety of their raw material coming out of Persian Gulf, going there. Can we provide them that exit? I told Chinese, why don't you give us an access from Karakoram Pass? We'll provide you an access from Karakoram Pass to Kandla. And we'll go from Karakoram Pass to Central Asian Republic, because I don't think so Pakistan is ever going to agree to give transit to India. And the way Zaranj, Dilaram and Chabahar port have been progressing, it will be at least a decade before we can actually functionally make them the lines of communications. We need to look at it. But Chinese have problems because Karakoram Pass is in a disputed territory as far as they are concerned. Then, as far as they are concerned, it's their territory. We could look at options via Nepal. This is, of course, we need to consider. So, infrastructure, we have really not acquitted ourselves very, very admirably, barring a few exceptions. We have done some, at some places we have done wonderful job. We have, even though after time overruns, Salma Dam or the parliament building in Afghanistan are projects worth taking pride in. But our key strength, our bigger strength is in services. See, ours is a services based economy. So, our development cooperation should also be primarily in services. Educational institutions, medical facilities, they should be the focus. I think in Afghanistan that Indira Gandhi Hospital earned you far greater influence than anything else. So, we need to set up more hospitals, more educational institutions, because the people, the products, the faculty, it will wield disproportionately larger influence on this particular issue. Africa should be the destination. Of course, in Africa we have a huge participation by way of UN peacekeeping force. Now, somebody will say, what has that got to do with development cooperation? But maybe we could target those countries where we have UN peacekeeping force for development cooperation. That would ensure safety to some extent, because UN peacekeeping force goes to those areas which are generally volatile and the global community is reluctant to invest there. So, where you have UN peacekeeping force, where Indian troops are deployed, maybe you could consider them for that sort of a thing. Oceans connect, and to that extent I think very often people sitting in Delhi look at oceans as dividers, but the fact is oceans connect. Oceans connect. Oceans connect South Africa with India. Oceans connect United States with India. And the topic is India and Indian Ocean. So, for us, the island states of Indian Ocean are extremely significant. And to that extent, I think island states of Indian Ocean region, that is Mauritius, Maldives, Seychelles, are extremely significant. We have gone in for a huge collaboration with them in the field of security. But this cooperation in the security field has a huge development connotation. These countries with small land masses and huge maritime zones simply lack resources to manage their ocean spaces. I think we have provided them with warships, we provided them with radar systems, enabling them to manage their ocean spaces better. This has also facilitated them to counter piracy. Now, one would say that this is security cooperation, but this actually facilitates shipping and trade. For shipping and trade to move unabatedly, you need that sort of a security cooperation. In the olden days, there used to be one tagline by MasterCard. There are some things which money can't buy. For everything else, there is MasterCard. So while we have been talking about money, as the chairperson said, that people will talk about money, there is some sort of a cooperation which money can't buy, and that is humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. When you provide succor to an individual in times of distress, you can't compare it with money. You can't say you spent $2 or $10. It's a chap. You have provided a help to an individual when he needed it most. And I think this is where India has come of age. I think 2004 tsunami was a defining moment. We deployed 32 naval ships, 7 aircraft and 20 helicopters to provide succor to Sri Lanka, Maldives and Indonesia when our own country was ravaged by tsunami. Our teams were providing support in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Andaman and Nicobar, but besides that, our ships were in Sri Lanka within 24 hours, in Maldives within 48 hours and in Indonesia within 72 hours, providing huge amount of relief material. And since then, we have really shown to the globe and to our neighborhood that we can do that. In 2006, when we evacuated personnel from Lebanon, it was one of the largest evacuations. We not only evacuated Indian citizens, we evacuated Nepalese citizens, we evacuated Sri Lankan citizens. So again, an assistance which can't be quantified in terms of money. In 2007, we assisted Bangladesh during Cyclone Sidr. In 2008, we assisted Myanmar during Cyclone Nargis. And this is even interesting because during Nargis, France wanted to go into Myanmar under R2P, responsibility to protect. Despite Myanmar government not welcoming them, they wanted to go. But Myanmar had no objection with Indian assistance. So that is also very important, that it has been acknowledged in this particular region, that is the Indian Ocean region, that the Indian assistance is benign. It doesn't come with strings attached. And that's a huge plus. In 2011, we evacuated our people from Libya. We also evacuated friendly country citizens. 2014, when Maldives had a freshwater crisis, we provided fresh water to them. And in 2015, again a very, very significant pointer, we evacuated our citizens from Aden. What is important? We evacuated 179 citizens of 17 other countries. And what's more important, the US advisory which came, that Indian warships are withdrawing from Aden on so and so date. All Indian authorities have assured us that US citizens will be granted that. Those wanting to leave should approach Aden and board India, because US was not doing anything. They advised all their citizens to take passage on Indian warships. I think to my mind, it was a huge plus. So we have done a lot. We even assisted MH370 search process in Bay of Bengal. We provided ships, aircraft and depot. So development cooperation is a field where we have been doing well. And I think with certain amount of modification, with certain change in focus, this is the way to go. And with that, I think I've run out of my time. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.